preparing the live stream. It's our first time live streaming on 3 platforms simultaneously. So prayers, it goes well.
It will.
And looks like we should be live now. So.
Okay. Ready to go, Dylan?
Ready to go.
Okay, here we go.
Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C. and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. That all changes starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you.
Powerful.
Very powerful.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We've got a special guest tonight. In fact, we've got 3 of them. We've got General Paul Vallely, and we have Sheila Holm, who's just joined us, and then Rob Cunningham. And General Vallely, you have a special phone call that just happened before this call here. So we have very limited time with you, and I hope you come back again. But can you describe to the audience how powerful that message is and how this is going down, and share that with the people, please?
Well, it was so powerful that he understood what had happened in this country, how the government had strayed away from the people in many ways, robbing our treasury and unnecessary wars, unnecessary programs. And he understood that coming in because he learned a lot in the first presidency. But the key thing is the people. And that's what the Democrats and the left wing and others don't understand, is that this is a country of the people, by the people, and for the people. It always has been. But we strayed from that over the decades. We built these gigantic government programs, which put money into the pockets of so many bureaucrats, deep state people, as we call them. And so that message of going back to the people, and that's what he's done with all of his executive orders. It's about people, manufacturing, plants, jobs, and getting back to what America was built on. I mean, when we came out of World War II after defeating 2 major powers, the Nazis and the Japanese, that's when we started to build America. I mean, I was born in 1939. I was very young then, but I remember the days of President Eisenhower, and what a great time period the 50s were in this country. And we strayed from that when we got into the anti-Vietnam, the late 60s, and we allowed a lot of the left-wing ideology to, go seek refuge in our universities and twist the minds of our young. So I go back to the late 60s when a lot of this had occurred. And Trump understood that. And that's why as we take away and rob our treasuries for unnecessary wars, I mean, like going into Iraq was totally unnecessary. And then the $350 billion we put into Ukraine, none of that money's been audited. and it's been a corrupted money through the Ukrainian Kiev, the oligarchs, and so on. We never accounted for the money went into Afghanistan. That was an embarrassment. Also into the Middle East. And so Trump understands that to get back, and we can't waste the people's money. We need to build that money for our future, for our children, for good education, good cities, able to afford and buy housing. And that's one of the weak parts of the economy still, but they'll move towards getting that improved once they get rid of that moron at the Federal Reserve. What's his name? But I mean, he's doing something every day. He must get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Says, "Well, what am I going to do when I go down to my office at 7 in the morning in the White House?" And I mean, he comes up with something every day. And the Democrats, the left wing guys, they don't know what to do. They're all they can do is basically criticize him and attack him. Such as the crime that's being wiped out of Washington, D.C., and cleaning up the streets from the homeless. I mean, Vance and Hegseth were at Union Station today, and they got heckled as they walked through because they were doing away with crime. What have they had? 540 arrests, I think, in D.C. already. Guns confiscated. People feel more comfortable about going into Georgetown and out to restaurants. But these morons we have, like Pritzker in Illinois, Gavin Newsom in California, the hands, he crosses his legs, as they say, real men don't cross their legs. So, but and then what's happening, of course, when he looks at the Western Hemisphere, the Monroe Doctrine, getting back to the people, focusing on what we need to do in this country to build America from the dismantling of it. Tulsi Gabbard just saved us $400 million out of the National Intelligence Agency. 40% of the staff's being cut, not needed. There's so much fat, and Trump knows that. That's why going back to the people to create jobs, great opportunities for our young Americans, get a better college education. And so that's what that speech was about. And he knew that once he was in, he would sign a lot of executive orders that would place the power of our government back to the people again.
Thank you so much for that. Sheila, welcome. We appreciate you showing up here. General Valley has just a limited amount of time with us tonight, so I want to kind of focus on him and then focus on you after General Valley, so I appreciate your patience. So General, I want to ask you this. We talk about NESARA and GESARA, and do you see a total redo of all the voting right down to our local governments and our local mayors at some point coming up here where we just are dismantling the corporation? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I just wrote an article about 2 weeks ago. I think I sent it to Mike, but I wrote a very big article that we've got to get away from ideology and politics. I'm not for political parties anymore. I don't think we need them. They're partisan. All the congressmen do, even mine out here in Montana, all they do is ask for money. I'm so tired of it. And it's all partisan. If I may tell you a short story, when I went to Egypt and met with General al-Sisi in 2014, I headed up a delegation with Sebastian Gorka and Janine Pirro and some others. And anyhow, Obama had cut off all the aid. I'll get answering your question in a certain way here, but we'd cut off all the rates. I'm sitting with General al-Sisi, and he says, "Why does America always make decisions looking through a political prism? I have to look through a reality prism. It's like the pyramid, in our dollar bill. The eye, you remember that? Remember what's on the dollar bill? But he said, you cut off all of our aid. I've got the Sinai. I've got to work with Israel. I've got failing nations to my south, Sudan, Somalia. I've got Libya to my west. I've got to protect the Suez Canal. I've got to rebuild my economy." And he said, I'm sitting 8 feet from him. He said, "Why does America always seem to make its decisions looking through a political prism rather than a reality prism?" Well, I had an epiphany. I came back and then wrote the book called Reality Prism, which is on Amazon. But boy, that was an enlightening, that was an epiphany for me. But to go back to your question, we focus on trying to solve things politically. We can't do it. you have to look, let me bounce off of here. Sorry, they're trying to coordinate this call coming up. And so that's why the article I wrote, we've got to start solving problems looking at the facts. I mean, Mike, you're sitting there, if your microphone's not working, that's a problem.
Yep.
The reality is the mic's not working, so I got to solve that problem, get a new mic or get it fixed. It's the same way with all these situations in our cities and crime and all of that. Look at the basis of the problem through a reality prism, and don't play politics to try to solve our problems. That's why I like to get rid of political parties. I think with high tech today, we can come up with some AI solutions or something to elevate people at the local, state, and federal level to lead us anymore. I think we need a whole evolution there of how we put people in positions of leadership. I'm not sure that answers your question, but that's part of the challenge we have today.
I think in following up with my question, General, I think we've forgotten how to lead in this country, and we've given so much power to the government, and
Yeah.
we've forgotten how to be sovereign, how to live as kings and queens and take responsibility. And, you know, you go back to JFK's speech, you know, ask not what your country can do for you, what can I do for your country?
Right.
And I think that's a very powerful message that resonates right now today. Dylan or anyone else have a question for the general?
Yeah, I have one. I think General Valley, it's great to see you, sir. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. Remember, this was January of 2021, the 1776 report, where the very first thing the auto pen dude did was cancel this out. But you had Dr. Carol Swain and some of the most brilliant people in the world saying this core ideology has to be in every school system in every home in America. Do you see them revitalizing this with a new curriculum and common law standards and a revamp? Obviously, they're getting rid of the Department of Education, but I mean, you talk about first things first. If people don't know this, how the hell are we going to get the right leaders in place? This has got to be. Has to be our North Star.
That's exactly right.
How's that going to happen,
right.
General?
Well, no, you're absolutely right. That's why the transition at the local level now of our communities taking care of our schools, our grade schools, our high schools, and getting the right teachers in who are not teaching all of this crap of CRT, DEI, transgender crap, and lying to our kids and trying to create a whole different world for them. So that transition is going through. It's going to be a while. I mean, they're still having problems in Loudoun County in Virginia, where some trans went into the boys' bathroom there, as I understand it, and they keep trying to push that agenda. But I see a lot of our young people are coming around now, and they're changing. They're becoming more conservative. The Democrats are dead, as far as I'm concerned. I don't see how they can revive themselves. They have no leaders. They try to promote Newsom out there, the moron, as a presidential candidate. I mean, it's crazy, but we're going through a good transition, but it's not easy. I mean, this second 100 days and now into the fall, again, we're going to see so many different things happen, and hopefully the Ukraine-Russia thing will come to an agreement here and end that war over there. So anyhow, it's a challenge every day, that's for sure. Look at what's happening in South America. We're trying to prevent the PRC from taking over the ports in Latin America. They're trying to get into almost 30 to 40 ports in South America. And we're trying to get a 850 square miles on the coast of Chile that the Chinese want as a naval port. So we're trying to get Trump to get that 850 acres and work with the Chilean government to put in a deep sea port there, because the only one we have down in that area, of course, is the Panama Canal, and the Panama Canal cannot handle the draft of the new ships. So you need deep water ports now, but the Chinese want it so they can move their supplies and their influence across the Pacific into Chile, across then north and south of the Andes, then into the Atlantic region. And Chinese are big in minerals in Mexico and South America now, Peru. So they're very active down there. So that's another challenge. We're trying to get Trump to move on that issue.
Thank you, General. Is anyone else, Anna, you got a question for the General?
Yes, well, that now that General mentioned a South American, and as we are here in Brazil,
Ah,
agreement between Trump and Putin, these negotiations going on, and Brazil is part of BRICS,
Right.
and what is connected to Russia immediately. So we are the first letter of this I
Correct.
don't know, of this arrangement. So
Right.
how do you, sir, can you update us on Brazil and this new scenario that it's coming through Trump and Putin?
Yeah. Well, BRICS, I'm not sure, it's 62 or 65 nations now. And guess who their favorite leader is? Putin, Russia. All the lies that we see now about Putin and Russia is all Western propaganda. You know, all they do is bang on Putin, but Putin had his reasons for going into Ukraine, and we don't have time to go over it tonight. But when I was in Moscow, I got to learn a lot about the Russian people. They're very sophisticated. All this crap that their economy's in shambles is all Western propaganda, put out by mostly the UK, France, and Germany. And Putin's a very brilliant statement, but yet they keep banging on him. And, you know, we have Lyndon Johnson that caused more deaths by us going into Vietnam, and then Bush going into Iraq, killing millions of people, much more than Putin ever even thought of in Ukraine. I mean, so, you know, when we look at our government, what we've done, and you try to keep banging on Putin for what he did, the eastern provinces of Ukraine are all pro-Russian. Historically, it's Russian. They voted 3 years ago to be a part of Russia. But the Azovs, the Nazis, battalions run out of Kiev, have mercifully killed and injured thousands in the Donbass and Luhansk region of eastern Ukraine. And that's why they say that 200,000 children been kidnapped by Russia. No, the Russians took in those 200,000 to take care of them. So, but you'll notice on Western media, and they never have a Russian on. Maybe in Brazil they do, but Western media, you never have a Russian on Fox News or any of our networks, and so nobody ever hears the Russian side of things. Now, I'm not saying
Major General, you did instigate. Just want to let people know this: that you were the initial, had the initial meeting with Putin and Trump. You helped initiate that, and
yeah,
I
March of
people know that right
2017.
now, right? In 2017, and I mean that is a, you know, you're so humble in everything you've always done, but you don't really talk about that. That is a tremendous you know, feather in your cap that you've done, and thank you for that.
Well, yeah, thank you. But it's an understanding of why people do things. Trump does not have one good Russian advisor, not one. They're all neocons, and even Jack Keane, 4-star, he gets on there and he's changing his attitude now, more positive towards Trump. But all they do is bang on Putin and the Russians. And their economy is doing very well, by the way. Sanctions don't work against a country like Putin. They do what we call workarounds. And, you know, where you work around, if I can't get a loaf of bread here, I'm going to go around the corner and get it. That's what we call workaround. But I know people are very concerned about the communist leader, I guess, in Brazil. You know, you could talk more about that. And then a $50 million bounty has been put on Maduro in Venezuela by the Trump administration. So Trump is very focused now on the whole Western Hemisphere, the doctrine, and I think you're going to see more focus on Latin America now.
Well, I'm glad. And if it's necessary to have at least one advisor from Russia, I would suggest Lev Tolstoy. And for me, he's amazing. And his
Yeah.
work is so
Well, the Russians are very smart people. They're no dummies.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
And when you travel to Russia, you go to a subway station and it's artwork. It's
Clean.
amazing. It's
The
clean.
streets are
Yeah.
clean. Yeah. The
Yes. And
stores
people
are
are,
full of groceries. And one of my guys, Mike Maloof, I've been trying to get President Trump to hire as one of the top guys on Russia. And, Russian television is the largest network in the world now. A lot of people don't know that, RTTV. Uh, and I've been to their headquarters. They're bigger than BBC or CBS or Fox or any of them.
yeah.
But the influence, and by the way, BRICS you were talking about earlier, they're going to
Hmm.
control 2/3 of the gross national product of the world this
Hmm.
year, those nations.
Yeah.
So
Well,
they're big, and they don't want to destroy the dollar, as I understand it, but they want to compete with more in the digital area, more in a different currency. Countries can trade in their own currencies rather than just the dollar.
the thing is, regarding Brazil, we cannot compete. When you go to a street, I live in Rio de Janeiro, one of the most famous cities in the world, and we have in just one city, the main city, we have at least 1,000 slums. So it's impossible for us, as we have the thinking, as Sheila is always mentioning, the country is the people, and we have at least in Rio, one of the most famous cities in the world, at least um,
Sure.
millions of people living in conditions, and it's all the way it shouldn't be this way. It was all
Right.
created to portray destruction and poverty, and it's completely different from Brazil's reality when you
Yeah,
studied your country.
Brazil is the fifth biggest economy in the world, isn't it? I think. I think it's the
Well,
fourth, fifth largest economy in the world.
yes, we are we have 218,000 people in this country, all working. um, we have a lot the same problem as United States and many other countries that are
Yeah,
under the communist government,
yeah,
and the social help they receive every month because of the number of children. It's last week, just for you, sir, to go to understand. I went to a popular place, very popular place for health care here in Brazil. I went there just, well, to check. And when I arrived, they asked about my address, how many people live in my house, how much we do inside money wise, okay, regarding the income of the house. And they said, why do you need that? I just need an appointment with a doctor. Oh yeah,
mhm,
we have a doctor, but you have to give me all this information. So why?
yeah.
It's my
They want to
house,
control
my life.
you.
Yes,
They
exactly.
want to
Yes.
totally
And
control
people,
you. Listen, I got to bounce off now to get with General Flynn here, but can we do this again maybe next week, Mike, or we can do some
Yeah,
follow on?
yes, I'd
Yeah.
love.
Major General, I'll let's do it again. Let's do a follow up next week if you're available this same time next week. I'll call you or text you, and we'll try to work that out for next week because we'd love
Yeah,
to continue the conversation on this. So
sure. Well, absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope I was
No,
able to pass some information that I have, but I'm trying to keep at 85 years old. I'm trying to keep my mind busy and keep
look great.
yeah,
on track. So,
General,
okay, well, thank you very much.
All
Bye
right.
thank you
bye.
Thank you,
so
General.
much.
Yeah.
Sheila, welcome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, Sheila, thank you for being so patient with that. I mean, Major General called me. What was it, Cranker? About 20 minutes before we got. I'm like, oh my gosh, he just called me. He's got a thing he's got to do, and with General Flynn, and he said that he was going to do it. So I didn't want to say anything, and so he went on and said that he had this call that he had to do. So thank you for understanding that, and yeah, we will continue maybe another show. We'll do this again, but we want to focus on you, and we apologize for kind of making the show divided like this. So
No,
yes,
no, it's all okay because of what he's doing, his books, the information he's revealing. I have a lot of respect for him. Being from San Diego's his Sinaloa. I mean, I just have a lot of respect, and we've been in touch many, many times. We just did our first interview together today with Michael Jaco earlier today, and that's the first time we've done them together. And he just got my book last Wednesday. Did he tell you that?
No, nope. So Rob Cunningham, he's showing up there, and actually, I'm gonna show up on the screen. So I'm gonna do a screen
Oh
share.
my goodness.
I just need to get an autograph.
Look at the
Yeah,
technology here.
we can
We are
can
so
do
good.
that. We can do that. General Flynn called every month to see when it was coming out. It was just he's just been very, very, very supportive. I'm so honored. I mean, who would have thought 4 or 5 years ago we'd all be connected with these generals and talking on these things, and you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I'm deeply, deeply honored. We could have kept General Vallely on the whole time, you know. But what's really amazing, he has such a different aspect to all of it too. When he talks about the schools and the teachers and everything else, see, God has taken me through this whole process back from the beginning, which is why I ended up in Georgia for 3 weeks instead of San Diego, where I'm from. And that was 2013, guys. And so here I am, but the whole public school system was Alice Bailey, Lucifer Publishing, and then Lucius Trust. And our president just told us, I don't know, 4 months, 6 months ago, that Lucius Trust now owns a UN building, which is impossible, except that they're all in on it because our Congress paid for the remodeling of it. And God had me up at like 2 in the morning back in, it would have been 2007, going into 2008 when they were remodeling in New York. And President Trump was before, he was a developer then, as you guys know, and he was being interviewed by them. And he said, "You guys are ridiculous. You're paying this Italian architect, and every month you're changing the plans and paying him another $600,000. Do you realize how much over budget?" He told him exactly to the billion they'd be over budget, and they even exceeded. They got to that point, and then they still let the whole thing continue. But what he said just weeks, months ago, he said, "Did you know that Lucius Trust now owns that building?" And I was dumbified. I'm sitting watching it just like you guys are on TV, and I'm like, they can't. They can't. How they didn't pay it? It's us. You know what I mean? But this is what they do. But let me give you a root that a lot of people don't realize, and that is that the world order came to America in 1871. It was brought here by the same Albert Pike. And when he did that, he brought it into Charleston. Why? There's a huge breaker off the shore of, if you look at Charleston's map, there's this huge breaker wall that's off the shore, and they're able to bring them in. Just like the Scherf family who went by Bush in America, the whole thing was a lie. That Scherf family has this big area at Kennebunkport. That wasn't a family compound, guys. That was the infiltration center for Operation Paperclip. They were as tight with Hitler. His dad was 41's dad was the assistant to Tesla. And then when he went to Europe for a while, they always go for 4 days, just like Pelosi when she did the Brennan missile and she was going to have the White House blown up and come back as the president. They go away for a few days. And when he went away, Bush 41 and Borman took out Tesla. And then when he comes back, he's like, oh, shocked and surprised. And it was the Kennedy brothers, president and AG, that brought the truth forward in 1963 in September, that ended up with Kennedy being taken out in November. So all of these people are related. All of these people are connected. All of this, I mean, the lies, you guys, the lies are just horrific. Just horrific. So, but I didn't know you guys knew about me. I thought because all of this was happening last Wednesday. General Vallely and I've always been communicating by emails. And so because of San Diego and my nation restoration book and all of that. And I was on Todd Callender's long email list. We were working on the genocide together. Sinaloa was back in 1718. By 19 going into 20, we're working on the genocide planned, because every 20 year and every century they kill off believers. And so, I mean, we were working on all this, and Vallely was on all these lists. And so Vallely was communicating with me about Sinaloa and et cetera. So all of a sudden last Wednesday, if he didn't tell you, he called me and he said, I just got a gift in the mail, and he got my book. And I said, and he didn't even know who he got the book from. Somebody bought my book and had it shipped to him. And so his wasn't autographed. And so now I just sent one to Muffin, but I autographed it to him so that he can give his his to Muffin and he can have the autographed one. But when we had that conversation, all of this happened with you guys. So I didn't know when Anna said something about Sheila. I don't know if that was me, Sheila, or so I don't know how all this happened, except Vallely was in touch with me about all this stuff. And then you guys were communicating at the same time, and then having him communicate how to connect with me. It was all happening at one time. So I don't know how all this happened. I don't know. Interrupting
God
Vallely is
thing.
how I feel
It,
right now because he's so valuable.
it's a God thing.
It's a
And
God thing.
it,
It's a
it
total God thing.
probably would be its own show if we tried to connect the dots. I'll just tell you that, Sheila, because Major General's been, I mean, I've known him for 5 years now. He's a investor in our company that we have, and he's our national security advisor, and he's just been such a mentor to me and our company and what we've done, and it just been a little sliver. And then I met Crank. I mean, we could take this web and go so far, you know. So, but at the end of the day, it comes back to divine appointments, and I think God puts people in the right places, and if you're obedient and you're faithful to what He's doing, I think things they play out. And I mean, that's the best way to describe it. There's no other way to say how my little piece in Chicago, Illinois, met with Jim and I mean beat all these things, and then here within 2 days we put this show together. I mean, that's incredible. So
Sheila, I saw you at Mike Jaco, and I've been following you for a number of probably the last 3-4 years, and I love the fact. I mean, I'm a huge Jordan Maxwell fan, and I learned so much from Jordan Maxwell. And then I heard you, and I'm like, oh my God, she's the divine feminine of Jordan Maxwell. And when I heard you talking about General Valley contacting you, I knew that Mike was working with General Valley. I says, we got to get these guys on our show. And everyone on this
So
panel.
you guys didn't even know that we were that we were talking on the phone the same day all this happened.
not
That's the
at
first time we
all.
talked on the phone.
Not at all.
Not a clue.
Nothing.
Not a clue.
Not one clue. That's why I just said in less than 24 hours, we put this together on, what was it, Jim? Thursday night, I think.
Yes.
I mean, I emailed you on Friday, Sheila. I copied you on the email to General
Well,
Valley.
you already had Vallely because he was already talking about it right after our call. And he had just called me. I didn't even have his number. I didn't know who was calling me. And I try not to take those calls, and God always says, take that call. So I
Oh,
took
wow.
the call, and here it was him.
Yeah,
But he
it's
had
all,
just gotten off an hour phone call with General Flynn. So and I said, well, sir, he's been waiting for this book. And I sent one to his wife, and that's why I sent one to Muffin too, because 500 pages, you can't share it real easily.
right.
And so Flynn's been waiting since June of 21 for the second edition Nation Restoration. I said, sir, nobody needs that book. It's just more of my story. And he goes, Sheila, we already vetted you. And I'm like, what? What? And so I was talking to some of the military guys that I do Zoom calls with, and because I need that kind of information in order to stay up to date. So I was talking to him, and have you heard about the 4 layers? So there's 4 layers, and so the 4th layer may never change from where they are. They may never get it. They may never do anything. But there are people in the 4th layer that aren't happy that become the 3rd layer, and I forget what the names of them are. And so he said, what you're not seeing, but we can see it, is that you're going to think that the layers collapsed, but it's really God raising up because there are people that need to hear certain things and they can't hear them until the right people get together.
Yeah. Amen.
And that's exactly what's happening in our country right now.
Yep.
Something happened with that Jaco interview last week, because we've been doing interviews and they've been getting really good responses. Last week, I had probably 90% men, most probably 80% of that military, right into me with these long testimonies This is where my life was. And then I started listening to Sheila Holm. I haven't had that kind of response. I have good responses, but those kind of responses coming in now, because normally it's family responses or it's female responses or that kind of a thing. And now there's some big thing that is coming together with all these guys who've been at the top communicating these things, and they're a panel that does this program. I just got a call on Friday. So Wednesday, Vallely, Thursday from you guys, Friday, because he was sending me all this stuff that you wanted to talk to me. So then you said something about, can you connect me with her? And so then he sends it to me and then sends it over to you. And then you sent it to me that he sent it to you. I mean, all of this happened between Wednesday's phone call and Friday. Do you see what I mean? And now this group, whatever they are, we haven't even done it yet, but they've been doing it through this whole time, but they don't have any women on it. I said, well, there's probably a reason. And because now I have people writing to me saying, what are we going to do? And I said, you know what? We have to bring back the fathers in this country, because this whole 45 points I just wrote about is all they've done is kill the fathers. The whole Civil War, over 700,000 men. And I had 35,000, and the president corrected me and said there were over 700,000 men that we lost, and they were all believing men. This is all they've done from the beginning of time. This goes all the way back to the garden. Cain killed Abel, and if he could have killed Adam, that's where we are.
Yep.
And so all of this is the same thing. And I don't mean, now I'm kind of getting on a soapbox here about things, but the education system, the schools, the public books for the public schools. So it's not just closing the Department of Education. It wasn't even around until Reagan. It was put in Reagan's time frame. And his Secretary of Education has spoken against him ever since on all sorts of YouTube videos. But it wasn't that. It was 100-year plan, speaking to Alice Bailey from Lucifer through a bracelet, the same darn thing that back in 1860s is what positioned all of this stuff against our nation, through Albert Pike speaking to Lucifer through a stupid bracelet. I mean, what the heck? It's the same story on all these top people on the satanic side, all have the same story.
Now,
I heard from
can I ask,
Lucifer through a
what's
bracelet.
up with Trump wanting to put that Albert Pike statue back up? Or I don't know if it's Trump, but DC is planning to re-erect the Albert Pike that got pulled down in 2020 during the BLM protests. And I'm thinking maybe it's just to draw attention to him again. So people are like, why are we putting back up a Confederate general? To start looking into his books and his literature to find out what you're saying. But I don't think that should be put back up or restored as a statue that got pulled down. But what do you think, Sheila? By the way, good to see you again. I met
DC
you back
isn't.
in met you back at Reckoning Fest in Dallas, and I gave you a ride from the movie back to the hotel. But it's good to see you again. I've wanted to do a video with you for a while, so welcome to the channel.
You do the mapping. You're the Dylan that does the mapping.
Yeah, I'm the
And we met
mapper.
with Juan then before we left.
Yeah.
I remember you. You're
You're famous, Dylan.
Yeah, there you go.
I know you.
Okay, Albert Pike is not a big deal, guys. And Albert Pike, all of these names. I mean, you drive in Dallas and everything is Johnson and Bush, guys. Everything has to change. And Harry Reid is over the airport in,
Yep.
is it Vegas? And where's Hillary over the airport? And then you go to
Little
Minneapolis
Rock.
and it's Hubert Humphrey. And now we find out it was Hubert Humphrey behind giving up the Panama Canal for no money. And do you see what I mean?
Yep.
It's all of this stuff, guys. And they did all of this. I mean, he was from the 1950s, and this was all, $375 million between 1903 and 1914 that we paid, plus 40 million to France, plus 10 million to Panama. That's what it cost us to do that darn canal. And then anyway, so there's so much to share with you guys, and I don't want to sputter all over the place, but DC is not even important. DC was removed from being DC on June 14th. There's a lot of that would take a whole interview time just to go over what happened on June 14th, because June 14 changed everything in this country, and it's only Washington now. People are going, well, why then is Dan Scavino still doing DC? Well, because the world hasn't figured it out. It's just like when people say, you know, that the names of Baal are God, Lord, and Master of the universe. Why do you still say the name God? Because people believe that God is their God and you've got to bring them along. I'm not here to divide people anymore because it's all been divide and conquer.
Mm.
So regarding Albert Pike, the difference, Dylan, is go ahead and put his statue back in DC because that's not our heroes garden that the president is putting together. And he's serious about that. And it is going to happen. And it's going to be the real people. So go ahead and put statues up of Harry Reid, who did the whole Bundy thing. His son created that whole Bundy problem. And that was in Nevada, wasn't the ranch in Nevada? When you put these people together, the credibility is just gone. But DC is no longer DC. He changed that. Remember when he brought in the DC Coast Guard, he brought in the DC Marines, he brought in the DC Army, and he kept saying it's a DC unit, right? He had to get them all together. Then what did he do? He oathed them back into the Republic and called it the regular military. The regular military brings all of our guys back to the militia. Why did we need to come back to the militia? We wouldn't have a border problem if we still had a militia. They transferred everything into the military industrial complex, which includes the National Guard and it includes the Border Patrol. Everybody's under the same regulations, under the same rulings, and can't do anything. And they're all controlled by people who don't want to follow the Constitution. And there you are. Because the Constitution says it's our militia unto death will protect our border. So that's a militia in your state. And then the militia, the several states militia, when it's a situation like Texas, just like Remember the Alamo. That was my article in the first Andrew magazine in August of 23 when they launched that magazine, was that we know how to protect our border. We aren't backing our militia anymore. We aren't using our militia anymore. We're not following any truth. And so we were getting into this today on Jaco's interview with General Vallely, where I was mentioning about some of these things that that the takeover of America is so intense and so deeply rooted that people keep wanting President Trump to fix it, and some are still mad that he didn't fix it in the first 4 years, and they want him to get it fixed now. And don't take your whole 4 years to fix it. Guys, we've been like this the whole 250 years. They've been taking us here the whole 250 years. I'm sorry.
I want to ask you a question, if you don't mind. I so resonate with you about how we have to bring people along. There's maybe 5 or 10% of us that can have this conversation. There's 90% of the people that are still asleep. And so it's almost like this quantum resonance is happening at a hyper increasing speed, right? But we still have to start at the second, third, and fourth grade level. I want to put up a graph and have you narrate it however you want to do it. I want you to riff on it. Why? Because I want people to start from like 1871 to today, see the scope of what we're dealing with, so they can understand the context of where we are in history. Okay. And if I can share a 3 or 4 minute clip and get this out to people where they can go, now I get it. Well, I'm expecting everything.
But it's not 1871. It's not even
Well, it was earlier
1792.
than that. I get
It's
it.
not even 1776.
Well,
We had to be taken over because the Pilgrims brought the truth. And they banned the church system in America. They banned its whole church structure. So this goes all the way back. What we're battling goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. And
yes.
it's because we've never been free. We've never been independent. The whole thing has been a lie. We didn't win World War II. There was no winning in World War I. And World War II, you're going to find in the 45 points now that you have the book. That's why you had me write it backwards, because it starts with the first and second point were about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so we were fed the whole lie. We capitulated, which means surrendered the Second World War after all of that, because the Second World War ended up, they wanted to do a nuclear strike, and we didn't want that to happen. Well, we were controlled by the people who are already in the other kingdom the whole time anyway. And so as Americans, we don't want to be responsible for the nuclear. So what happens? We clear out tens of thousands of acres in a place called Oak Ridge. It kept everything a secret. We paid $15 million to the Germans, and brought their scientists here and brought them here and built the bombs, paid for everything, paid the flyers. It was our planes that dropped the darn bombs, and they dropped them on the lifetime Nagasaki believing community that they killed 10 and 20,000 at a time. And then we did the same thing on the same day, August 6th of 1945 on Hiroshima. And I'm waiting for the maps, because the maps have the zero plot zone to hit the largest church in Nagasaki and the largest church in Hiroshima. And so everything has been a lie to us. Now, why is 1871 important more than the corporation? 1871 is when Albert Pike put all the 33rd degree Masons together, and his right-hand guy was Giuseppe Mazzini. Giuseppe Mazzini put the Italian mafia together in 1860. Who was he? Politician in Italy. And so all these politicians, all the rulers who have the money, who do these things, but because we became the world order, that's why we're funding everything. That's why we go in and blow up all these nations, and then we go and rebuild them. But America's not getting rebuilt. And they've shown all these pictures of how Nagasaki and Hiroshima are now rebuilt in gorgeous communities. And look at Detroit, Michigan. Look at Chicago.
Look at Dubai. Look at the Middle East.
But all of our American cities are in disaster mode.
Right.
And that's why the president said we got to clean this up. But what he did, he's flipping it around. But when people say, why is president doing this? Why is the president not doing that? He's giving clues to us as to things to be concerned about. Albert Pike's name was never even mentioned before. Nobody really knew they took that down. They knew the general that they took down, that was over West Point as an instructor and then led it. They understood that, but they didn't know who was that. Who cares? And now that he's bringing it up, people are saying, well, who was Albert Pike, and where was he from, and what did he do? Because the guy was a liar his whole life. But they brought this in as though it was brand new. But the thing I want you to know is that our Congress, the entire Congress, House and Senate, funded the whole thing, enacted all these secret societies, top to bottom. Those two men were out of Boston, but 17 miles apart, two different suburbs. Justice Rathbone at the top, Knights of Pythias, orders of knighthood, all that junk on top. He was over and brought in all of that. He was a substitute teacher in Michigan for a while, then became a clerk in the Treasury, and then boom, he goes to Congress and makes a presentation. Would you guys like to do this? Then they credit Abraham Lincoln that it was his idea, and he thought it would be really great to have secret societies. Abraham Lincoln didn't want anything to do with it, and then the Knights of Pythias gets mad at him and takes him out. John Wilkes Booth of the Booth family, his dad had a big family in England, came to America, had another wife in America, had 10 children, 5 of them sons, all ran theaters. The entertainment industry is under Knights of Pythias. The businesses are under Knights of Pythias. The churches are under Knights. All of these organizations in America, they took over absolutely everything. Bob Jones University is the biggest one people complain about. How could Sheila Holm be saying that Bob Jones University, a Christian university in South Carolina, because he's listed on the memorial pages of Knights of Pythias as a high noble. That's why Kennedy told us, well, I'm still in this high noble office. And we didn't understand. How do we know what a high noble is in 1963? All right. Yeah, because it was 7 days before he was taken out that was his information. So 1871 as a corporation is one thing, but we've never been free of England. So us being a corporation, Israel being the state of Israel, corporation under England, it's the same thing. And people keep thinking the Israelites are there. They haven't been there since 721 BC. So we don't understand truth, and they don't want us to understand truth. They don't want us to know truth. And when you don't have truth, how do you make decisions?
You're lost.
You listen to what they tell you to do. And without truth, what is your mind? Without truth in your mind, it's a reprobate mind. That's why I say, watch out and find out who are the people with a seared conscience who don't really care, because those are the ones who are following the directions, and they will kill to save their own. And that's why Woodrow Wilson said, for the sake of saving my family, I sacrificed my nation. Because you don't know until you're there. It's just like we didn't know. once they did that with the Panama Canal, they were going to take us into the world courts. Can you imagine how mad they are that believers keep surviving all their crap? I mean, I was at a Linwood event and there were 6 speakers, and the other 5 all went to the hospital. We were all targeted by a weapon. I was in bed for 6 months, didn't even drive from July to December. And but I survived by staying out of the hospital, and all 5 that went in the hospital were all dead within 30 days.
Wow.
But if I hadn't lived, we couldn't have found the patent to know what we're battling. And then after I found that, this is how funny God is. So then he goes, I want you to look at the Latin definition of virus. And I said, God, I don't know how to do anything in Latin. He said, you can do it on your computer. He always has to remind me what the truth is. And so I looked it up, and a virus, and these viruses, 100 years ago, it was the H1N1 virus. It wasn't from Spain. It wasn't a flu. It was the H1N1 virus. All through your lungs, that RSV vaccine they have now, all because of lung damage. It's all being done to us. So when I looked it up, a virus is a venom, a poison. They've been doing venom and poisons in labs since before. I mean, you go back every century. In the new book coming out, in book 6, every 20-year recycle unto death goes all the way back. I found it to the 1300s. I haven't found anything scripted or written before the 1300s that confirms it. But recycle unto death is the other kingdoms' plan. And so that's why if we would have known, we would have gotten ready for 2020. That was their ultimate, to do the complete genocide. So we don't understand who our enemy is. We don't understand how they're operating. We don't understand. That's the problem we have. We didn't understand that Alice Bailey was printing these books called Lucifer Publishing. And it wasn't until she got married in 21 to another person from the Theosophical Society, which is the whole satanic kingdom that kings and queens of England have been over. Elizabeth I is in the center of their double triangles, and their double triangles end up becoming the star that's now the Star of Remphan that's on the Israel flag. And it's right in scripture. There's 3 scriptures that confirm from the Father that you're operate in the synagogue of Satan, you tabernacle with Moloch, and you've made your own star and you worship it. And that's the Star of Remphan. And that's what's in the center of the Theosophical Society that became the Eugenics Society that was behind the Georgia Guidestones to take us out in 2014. I mean, just if we would have understood the pattern of what they do and how they do it, but we lived that we had to be good to people and honor people and listen to people and do what we're told to do and be
Good
good people that way.
Good sheep. You know, Sheila, is it fair to say, would you agree that the only reason that we don't understand evil and what evil does and how evil believes the ends justify the means is because we don't know who we are and whose we are?
That's exactly what Father said. He help the people know who they are and whose they are. I've said this many times, so I don't want to repeat, things with you guys, but I said it many times. I was speaking in a beautiful resort, and the people were all applauding and all hugging me afterwards, and they just loved what I said. And then they said, and then the questions they asked, they didn't understand what I was saying. So they liked what I said. It all sounded good to them, but we don't know how to take action. It's just like all the executive orders that the president's doing. Everybody's so excited. They don't mean anything if they're paper in a drawer.
Right.
So we have to get active, and we have to do something about all of this. So anyway, so I went into the restaurant, and it was right by a lake. It was a beautiful view, and I'm sitting there, and I said, Father, I have to make it simpler, and I don't know how to make it any simpler. And he said, do you have a salt and pepper shaker? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, put the salt in your right and the pepper in your left. I said, okay. And then he said, okay, do you think you're the salt of the earth? And I said, well, I hope so. And I had just read that scripture that morning, and I said, I just want to be of good flavor and not lukewarm, so you spit me out. And so I'm holding him, and he said, so do you want to do what I want you to do? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, do you want to surrender unto me? And I said, well, I hope I have. I hope that's how I'm living. And he said, so you want to do what I want you to do to get the job done. And yes, that's what I want to do. And he said, okay, everything else is not. So if we aren't even listening to the truth, if we aren't in relationship with the only living Lord, and that's why in those three, I don't know if you've seen my presentations, God gave me the truth about the three eclipses in 22. And nobody knew about the 23 one. They were only talking about 17 and 24. And when God gave me the truth about it, we were in Reawaken in Branson, Missouri. I was just talking on tap with Warren Armour. He was physically there in the green room, and he just asked about this moments ago on his on tap program. And what happened is everybody said there's going to be this big X, and it's going to be right there, right at Missouri and Illinois, and that's why the Mississippi. It's right at the Mississippi, and the Mississippi's going to split. And God's targeting America because He's done with us. He's had it with us. Blah, blah, blah. And they were just. And it was so bad. And I just said, just stop. God's not targeting America. There's going to be a one in 2023. And all of this verbiage came out of my mouth that I didn't know anything about. I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about eclipses. And then they said, if they do that, then there's going to be an earthquake and going to be a tsunami. And then the cicadas are going to come up from underground. None of those, you've heard it all, but none of those people, not one of them has ever called me and apologized for saying that what they said was not even what God was saying. And so what God told me is it was going to form the cross, it's not an X, that's a cross. And he was going to cross two crosses because there's going to be a 2023 and it's going to cross the two crosses. And it went over the two highest crosses, 77.7 feet in Kerrville, Texas, and 111 feet in Illinois, right where it crossed there. And then he's going to give us a message because he's putting his name, he's in essence signing his signature on America. And that slanted A that those three formed, and to have three full eclipses across America in 7 years is impossible. They come about every 25 to 30 years. The next one is now going to be in another 22, 23 years. It's just going to dip into North Dakota and Montana. So what happened is he gave us those three eclipses in 7 years from exactly President Trump 2017 to 24, and then gave us the Nineveh message. Don't live as the Gentiles do. Don't learn what they do. Don't do what they do, or you may not think you're evil, but you will be of no good to me either. So he gave us his signature. He's with us, and then gave us the message. It's time. And then 6 cities of Nineveh means Ruach HaKodesh. Now 6 means beast, 6 means human, 6 means tent peg, and that's what they hung Christ with, was tent pegs. And so it means all these things. So you have to be tight with the Father. And I said, oh, 6, that's the beast. And God said, no, it's also Ruach HaKodesh, which is the Holy Spirit relationship, the tight connection and relationship connecting you direct with the Father. And so that's the message he was trying to give us.
And the letter X represents Christ, Christos in Greek. It's the Greek letter for Christ. So it had it been an X across America, that would have been fine too.
Yeah, but they said a target. But all this, now imagine, I'm a farmer's daughter from Nebraska. I don't know any of this stuff. So without the Father, without going as an empty vessel and letting him fill me, without him giving me this research, it sounds like you've already heard some of the interviews on what happened on the canal and how I found out the canal truth with the president and everything, because you can't do this without the Father. And being a real estate developer, I thought all Sheila has to do is find out these things, and then the president will take it on, and then boom, everything's going to happen. Well, that's not how it happened. Every phase I had to keep doing it. And every time I gave information to the guys and they gave it to him, every 3 days I was getting a message from him. So after I gave the initial information, I ended up in Reawaken in Vegas for that, getting there in time for that magazine release. I got there on Wednesday and they moved the dinner to Thursday. So what happens on Wednesday? I said, what do you want me to do, God? He said, I want you to turn on the TV. And he told me what station. I said, God, I'm in Vegas. I don't know what their stations are. So he has to tell me the number. So I turned it on and boom, here's Tucker interviewing the president. And right in the middle of a 45-minute speech on August 23 of 23, and this is all in the book. You'll find the transcript in the book. The president goes back to 1903. Can you imagine Tucker's face? And I'm sitting there and I go, he's talking about my research. And he was quoting everything in my research. And then my question was, if all of this being true, and I have found it to be true, then if that is true, who's in control of this? And the president, at the end of the 5 minutes, it's right in the middle. And Tucker keeps like, God, he's talking about 1903. It's his first interview after Fox. It's his first interview of his new network. He's got the president on with him the night of the debate. Remember the presidential debate? And boom, there it is. And he said, you're probably wondering who's got control of it, and it's China, but you're not going to have to worry. As soon as I give him a call, I'm going to get the control back because he's my friend. And I'm sitting there and just going, that's the encouragement I need. But now that he knows this, I thought the next message from the president was going to be that, oh, and we found the land, and then nobody found the land, but God had to show me how to find the land because the treaties are gone. This is what they do. They remove it all. You wouldn't know that Hubert Humphrey had anything to do with the canal. Everybody thinks that Jimmy Carter did this whole thing by himself, and Jimmy Carter did the treaties, and Jimmy Carter got the signatures, and Jimmy Carter only accepted $1. It wasn't Jimmy Carter. He was just a puppet of the plan to do this to us, so that, because that is the shortest distance getting across to two sides of the world. So that's why the drug trafficking, the sex trafficking, human trafficking, their products through there, and then charge our ships 4 and 5 times the amount. And everything I've asked for, he had Ted Cruz doing the audit of the budgets, and then he sent a military guy down to do the maritime logs. He's done everything. It's all happened because of that, and it wasn't even a conversation before God told me to research it. Do you see what I mean?
100%. So Sheila, I want to make a comment to what Rob said. X is the mark of symbol of Christ. Mm-hmm. And we have XRP, we have XLM, we have XDC. So I wanted to make that comment. The other comment I wanted to make is, what's your thoughts on the Bible that we've been presented versus what the real Bible is?
The Bible we've been presented has the names of Baal, God, Lord, and Master of the universe. They're trying to give credit to him, but it doesn't discredit the Bible. The concern about the Bible is we don't know all the truth, because they didn't want us to know that the Native Americans were the tribes of Israel who God lifted the water, just like he split the Red Sea. They weren't walking on silt. They weren't walking in mud. They weren't still sloshing in water. When he did it, it was dry land. When he did the same thing and coming across, and then they said, well, there's no way they could come across in a year and a half. So God had me study a guy that walked from up in the very, very corner up in Maine and came across to San Diego, and just spent time traveling and talking in the communities and et cetera. It was the same distance. And so even if, because England was only across the pond, even if they still could get across in a year and a half, no problem. And if you come straight across, you end up at the Savannah port in Georgia. And that's why King George III took care of this. So when you look at what has happened to the Bible, it's important not to discredit what is there, but to seek out what Father wants you to know of what they removed. So when did they remove it? 1804 to 1835. When did they remove the Native American Indians from their homes on the East Coast and sent them? Because they had 2- and 3-story wooden homes. I've stayed in some of them in Georgia because they were given to governors. And so the governor's mansions that had outdoor bathrooms, because the little wooden bathrooms in the backyard, at the time, they got all of the mansions of the Native Americans. They weren't living in teepees. And so everything we've heard is lies about here and what happened. So that's a big thing in America, is the Apocrypha describes this. Covfefe is out of the ancient book of Enoch. Covfefe was yelled to the Nephilim, the fallen angels, we will always rise and you will always fall. That's just the way it is. You go ahead and do anything you want to us. You can kill us, we'll still rise. You can, whatever you want to do to us. We are eternal and you're not. It's just like when I was going to do the book, I got a prophetic word back in 2017 that I got to quit living as Job. I got to understand that I'm a Joseph. And I made an agreement with Father that I would do whatever it takes to save America. And I thought, well, that's pretty lofty, guy. You know, you can tell me that, but that's pretty lofty. And I hadn't even come out with book 2 in a book series at that point, 2017. And I said, God, I need a really big confirmation. I didn't get it until President Trump left and went to Mar-a-Lago. When he went to Mar-a-Lago, he changed his stationery to Save America. It was exactly as God gave me the vision of what Save America looked like. So I said, okay, when I got these 45 points, I'll do the book, and we're going to call that book Save America. What does the president do last year? He comes out with a book and puts some big gold letters on the fight picture, Save America. So it's just like what you take out of the Bible. I said, okay, I can't do the book now. There goes the title. It's much better that he got it, but he stole it from me. So go ahead and tease him about that. But look at the title he gave me. So the Bible, as we see it, and the books they took out, who took them out? The British and Foreign Bible Society. There's no names. There's no description of who was there, what families were involved. Just they decided to remove them. And you know how they say, well, they weren't canonized by the Catholic Church. But if you get upset about 1871 and the corporation and the world order coming here, with Giuseppe Mazzini being involved, and you focus on that, you're forgetting the fact that the original world order was the Roman structure of the Roman Emperor Constantine with the Holy Roman Catholic Church. And it was called the Holy Roman Empire and the Holy Roman Catholic Church. And it was one structure that was world order back in 325. They started putting it together with the Nicene Council in 312 AD, and by 325 it was a real thing. 12 years later, Constantine dies. So even if we had it all, even if we had all 88 books instead of 66 books, it still doesn't diminish what we have. I've had, when I do trips with the Father, I've had where I'm not even on the pillow, maybe 1 or 2 nights on the whole trip. It doesn't matter how many days I'm in a different nation. All I have to do is sit with him with the Bible, and he'll point things out to me. I don't have to figure out where to open it up. I don't have to figure out what he wants me to see. He is the only one who knows the end from the beginning. So it really, it keeps people in division and arguments about what's right about the Bible, what's not right about the Bible. There are no lessons any better for us anywhere than what is in the Bible. And even though it's only 66 books and it's missing some of the things as to what happened before, that's why the president is saying things like Covfefe. People didn't look it up. He had me add that to the personal letter of the front of the book. So the introduction was going to start on page 99. It doesn't start till 107 because he had me explain Covfefe, because they never understood it. And even in 2019, I mean, it just kept going and going, how people had all these different descriptions of what Covfefe is. You cannot get the truth until you go to be in relationship with truth. And that is the Aleph in Hebrew, which is the Lord over all. And that Lord is Aleph. He is Jehovah. He is Adonai. He's got all these names. He had me put them in with his nature and character in the Wake Up Call book. And then starting on page 8 and Always Speak Life. I just sent that to the general and Muffin because the president and Melania had it and the president didn't. So that's a very, very important book. And on page 8, it starts listing, because when you say hallowed be thy name in the Lord's Prayer, you don't know who that Lord is until you know who he is. Now there is a Bible, and it's really a shame. A woman put this together, and where he is Elohim, it's Elohim. Where he is Jehovah, it's Jehovah. All of these different names, where he is Yahweh, it's Yahweh. And it's called the Names of God Bible. And I got one of the last ones in leather, but on used sites, whether you go to if you just go out on the internet and ask for the Names of God's Bible, do try and look for the leatherette one, because that one, I think it's selling for like 200 now instead of 55 that it did a few years ago. But it's fascinating because in the scriptures where he is being mentioned, it's his exact name that represents his nature and character. But you'll see all of that listed starting on page 8 and Always Speak Life. Because when he gave that to me, he said, for the wake up call book, he said, I said, how am I going to tell people you gave this to me? And he said, just tell them that a Bible scholar gave it to you because they believe a Bible scholar more than they do me. He knows that about the people who are on this earth. And so when I got to Always Speak Life, I said, what do I do now? And he said, now, because it was from May to November of 2015. He said, now you can tell them it's from me.
So it's really important that we had this conversation, Sheila, because so many people think that this is all about politics, and it's not about politics. It's not even close to being about
None of it is. None of it is. Because we don't know. And that's what, is it Bob or Rob? It's Rob.
Rob.
I can see his name. Okay. That's what Rob was mentioning, is that if we don't know who we are and we don't know whose we are, then we don't even know why we were here.
And Jesus said, Christ Jesus in the flesh said, my people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge.
And do you know how that continues on? He had me use that as an example, and somebody said, and I think it happened in editing, that it went to Hebrews, and it's Hosea 4:6, I think it is.
Yes, correct.
If you look it up, and it says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge, but that's in the personal letter, because he had me write about Aleph. Then it's in 3 parts. It's Aleph, and that's about 10, 12 pages, and Kofefe is like 10, 12 pages. And then all the rest of it is Eshad. It's a Hebrew word, Echad, and that word means absolute unity. The reason why Constantine split it into 3, called it the Trinity, said that they're 3 different, but they're all one. When Christ was on earth, he was Father in the flesh. The voice of the Holy Spirit that we hear when we're close and tight with him, and I pray that you will all become so tight with him, you'll hear him even when he whispers. And Nino Rodriguez said it on an interview after and I said, that's what I was praying. And he went into tears and cut the interview. I said, why'd you do that? He said, I don't cry on camera. And, but he had just mentioned that. He said, you're not going to believe it. Toward the end, we were toward the end of the interview anyway. He said, you're not going to believe it. I'm hearing so much now. And Sheila, it's so gentle. It's like he's just whispering the truth to me. And I said, well, that's my prayer. And he said, what do you mean? I said that you are so tight with him that you can hear him even when he whispers. There's nothing better than being and so close that you can hear the heartbeat of God and hear his voice. There nothing compares, and nothing else is even that important. So now back to the guy that was just saying that. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Qranker?
Qranker with the Q.
Qranker. Okay, so when you said that and said how important that is to be in that relationship, that's all there is. That's the only way we can accomplish on earth what we're here to accomplish. And that's why when Stephen was being stoned to death, he did the same thing Christ did. He's being stoned to death, and he said, do not let this evil rest on them. Like, don't let this keep them from their destiny. Same as when Christ said, they know not what they do. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. And Stephen was saying the same kind of words. And if he hadn't said that, who was in the midst carrying all the cloaks of all the people? The guy who created the gathering of the people in anger to kill the believers. It was Saul who became Paul. Saul can't become Paul if we don't. And that's why, and I learned this big lesson when I put some judges in prison in San Diego, state Superior Court judges and a top trial attorney. They went to prison on federal RICO charges. And I was so angry because nothing happened for me. I spent 7 years with the FBI on that. And then the economic fraud DA took another 5 years to get arrested in his office and get sentenced on felony fraud. And he was the economic fraud deputy DA. So there's 12 years of my life. And these people, their felonies got expunged. The judges went to halfway houses, and one of them got a divorce. So we paid a public defender, and then come to find out his wife that he divorced was another judge in the Superior Court, and they had a mansion between Bette Midler and Sylvester Stallone in Hawaii. That became his halfway house, and he wasn't a drug a guy under that law to go to a halfway house, but the warden went with it. And I'm seeing all these people, they're just, I pulled a few out of the quicksand, but everything that it cost me didn't accomplish much. And I was so upset. And a woman jumped up and ran and got a microphone at a women's meeting in North San Diego County. And I had told the father that I just wanted to hear this international speaker. And as soon as she was done speaking, I wasn't going to stay for the dinner or come back for the closing ceremony, because don't have a husband, don't have kids, don't have any relationship to any of this stuff. And so I just wanted to hear this speaker. And so this woman runs up, grabs a microphone and said, no one has ever let me say a prophetic word in my church for 12 years, because they said my words are not from God. But God said somebody has to hear this message, and they have to hear it right now, because they're not staying tonight and they're not coming back tomorrow. Got my attention. And she said, God said that you had such a horrible experience in the courtroom. He wants you to know that even he cried. And she really got my attention. And she said, what he wants you to do is line up all those men who destroyed your life. Line up every one of them and start on the left side and forgive the first one, and so deeply until you can forgive the next one, until you can forgive the next one, and continue. So I'm doing that. And then she goes, you're so busy focused on man, you don't even see that Christ walked in the room. Then you get so excited because you want him to deal with them. And he has to ask you, perhaps you're sitting in my seat. So you immediately move and let him sit down. But he has one question for you. I'm making this as simple as what she said, a lot of wonderful things, but this is the gist of it. She said, he has one question for you. Will you let me forgive them as deeply as I have forgiven you? I'll never forget that moment. I made sure I acknowledged her for what she said. I did stay that night. I did go back the next morning. I did speak to that speaker. And 7 days later, I stopped hearing about Jonah and the whale, and I went to Promise Keepers. I kept telling God and man had to go. And I said, finally, I said, after 3.5 years, I'm just going to go ahead and go. I can't believe all these men told you no. He said, Sheila, for the same 3.5 years, you've told me no. You see how specific he is. So in this, if we don't know him and we don't know why he has us here, we could end up leaving and saying, but I was really good to all these people. And you say, but you didn't do it in my name. I don't even know you. And that's in scripture, is that he may not even know you if you're just trying to do good things, because good works, good acts mean nothing. He has a plan for every day of your life. He knows the end of your life from the beginning of your life. And you're either on a path with him or you're not. It's salt or pepper. Are you aligned with what he wants, or are you not? There's no way President Trump could come through this, and everybody calls him a brand new Christian. There's no way he could come through this. No way he could operate in fifth dimension. No way that he could hear every time he needs to hear exactly what Father wants him to do. Because all he has to do is mention Covfefe and have him go crazy. The Atlantic magazine 2 years later said the chaos that the president created for 6 hours and 3 minutes. Was that important to them? 6 hours and 3 minutes. I mean, if we could understand and be with him, can you imagine what we could each accomplish? Because what we don't understand, the America Project that I was talking about briefly, did you know that Bonaparte came here and set up the special agents? He was our Secretary of the United States Navy, Bonaparte, great nephew of Napoleon, who became a self-declared emperor of France. Why? That broke him away from England. The King George that was over us, and that's why we were still under England until President Trump took care of it. That king was over France. So we weren't fighting France, fighting England, we weren't fighting all these different groups. We were fighting King George and his army, his soldiers. And so what we've never understood is that we've never been free of any of them. And when the Native Americans helped fight for the land, that's what the 1812 war was. And everyone just likes the 1812 overture as a song. We didn't know that the Creek kept fighting till 1815, 1816, because they fought for the land and were still being pushed off their land. So we don't know who to stand with. We don't know who to participate with. And what this Bonaparte did was set up every town, every village, town, city, county, state with a corporation umbrella. We're still there. That's why little villages have board of trustees, because they got a corporation. We've never had control of anything. And that's why Flynn was saying, until you make an impact locally, you can't do anything nationally. The federal is not going to change. And so locally, if we want to do something about this locally, we have to do it. And that's why there's one scripture God had me put in the book called Titus 1. And Titus 1, I think it's from Paul. Titus 1 is, you guys don't understand the program. You have to have 2 elders in every part of your community who are going to make sure there's nobody grifting, nobody breaking the laws, nobody, they can't be bought, they can't be deceived easily. You've got to have those kind of people standing in all of these areas. And they, point 43 of the 45 points, take them over before they're self-governing. And that's what they did. Knights of Pythias. Knights of Pythias was the Supreme Court. It was the entire Congress. It's always been. It's the entire. It's the entertainment industry. It's the whole medical industry is under that. The military industrial complex is under that. They're all under that whole structure. We didn't know. We didn't know. And now even the parties in the states are setting up their own corporate structure in the states. Georgia voted in a corporation.
Yeah.
And they were just telling me about it. They said, Sheila, I just heard your interview about these corporations. And did you know the Georgia GOP is that?
Inc. 2014, Brian Kemp.
Yep.
When he was Secretary of State. That's my state. I mean, you talk about a state that needs a enema and a exorcism. I mean, Creature Jekyll Island, right? The Georgia Guidestones, the corporation.
But it's every state.
The state that was stolen in 2020.
Yeah.
Sheila, I think maybe from a standpoint of taking this down, I call this exercise table topping. How do you take the most complicated issues in the world and have a conversation with a soccer mom and dad who really don't care or don't want to care? And how do you explain this system that we're in from Christ to today? I try to help people understand that literally every county, every state, every asset, every person, there's a Dun and Bradstreet number, a tax identification number, a social security number, a birth certificate number. There's a tag and a number associated with every single thing in the corporation. And if people,
but if you get into the corporate conversation, because the corporation's going away,
I understand.
It's pretty much, it's already defaulted and bankrupt.
No, I understand that, but if people don't know where they've been, they don't know where we're going, they can't have any idea as to what the hell Trump's been doing for 10 years. Why has he been hated so much? You know, why is the corporate media tried to character assassinate him and actually assassinate him? Because they were ordered to do that very thing to keep the corporate structure in place, right?
Okay, but it goes back deeper. If we try and get into paperwork, if we try and get into the structure of what they've done to us, this was all planned long, long ago. We have to shift the conversation. Why do you suppose they stopped teaching cursive? Because they don't want the people to be able to read that it's we the people in order to form a more perfect union. We the people. And so it starts with we the people and what we need to do, because we can't describe to them everything that needs to be done because we're not the Father, and we can't guide them in all the things they have to do. What we have to do, and it's what Christ said, bring them to the feet of, because every one of us has a purpose and a plan here. I never thought I'd be writing these kind of books. I've been so upset about these 45 points. Yeah, I just can't even describe to you how upset I've been. The amount of sleep I've had in the past 3 years is just minimal, because everything else is happening too. And at the same time, I put the other 50. So I went from 120 to 170,000 on my one car from 2000 that I never put these kind of miles on. God gets me a car with less than 10,000 on it in 22. And now I've got 140,000 on that one. He found a really great used car with less than 10,000 miles, and here I am again. All of that is happening at the same time. I'm trying to focus on this. And I can honestly tell you, Rob, I never knew it was going to be this. We can't tell other people what they have to know and be and do because
I understand. I guess
right.
the point I'm trying to do is explain a movie to people to put some context so that the assumptions and presumptions don't get lost. And we can't even, if we're on AM and they're on FM, they're never going to tune into the channel. They don't turn the radio on. They don't get from AM to FM and get to the right 95.7. They're never going to hear anything. But I guess from a
Okay,
story,
this might help you. This might help you. There is no way to get to them except to listen to them and hear where they are. When we hear where people are and what their concerns are, Father will give us ways to help them.
Sheila,
Because
I understand that. I'm asking, obviously, I'm talking in the context of someone who wants to engage in a conversation with you. If they want to understand and we want to break it down for them and then use our words to the best of our ability, all things are going to point to the feet of Christ and God. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's ultimately where we have
yeah,
to
but
take.
we didn't know that. As a nation, we didn't know that.
No, we didn't.
As believers, we didn't know that. We were here trying to be the best we could be. What did our parents say? Go out and be successful. So you
Sheila,
go out and be successful in the world, and we go down that path.
Yeah, I agree. I just what I'm trying to, I guess what I'm trying to get to, the bottom line point is that yes, we failed miserably. We got trapped, we got lied to, we got divided, we got deceived, we got hijacked, evil took over, devoured, divided, deceived, and destroyed our understanding, our oneness, our relationship with God. I guess I'm trying to do is explain to people, how do they do it? How do they break it apart? How are we a corporation? Prove we're a corporation. Now, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get back to that love letter covenant. If we understand that 56 guys signed a love letter to God saying, we recognize all rights come from you and you are the one, the giver of everything, and we're going to serve you. In the 11 years from the time that document was signed to the Constitution, we got perverted then, right? They interceded between the love letter, which was a covenant to God, and then they intercepted and started breaking us apart. I mean, they never really even stopped during the 1776 war. But my point being is to wake people up that want to wake up, that want to understand. They're starting to go, okay, I think we're the 10%. There's 90% of the people are still trying to figure this out. They need to somehow or another start processing what happened. And then if they can go, oh, I get it. We got separated from God. We got divided. We got torn apart. We got torn asunder. We were lied to in the churches and the corporations and the classroom and the government, on the media. They took us over completely and wholly. And now what we're trying to do is have a 2,000-year second flipping of the money changer tables to wake our butts up. And I think if some people can begin to say, is it really that big? Has the scope been that vast? Have we been lied in a stupor for so long? Is that really what's happening? Are we having a money changer table flipping operation that was similar to 2,000 years ago? Because Christ saw what the church, the bankers, and the politicians were doing to us. That was the event that made him flip over the tables, beat people with a bullwhip, and 5 days later he's hanging from a tree. Because those forces came together to screw the people, to enslave the people, to lie to the people, to steal from the people. And then when Christ pointed it out to them, they killed him.
Did you, since you have the book right there, check and see if there's a picture on, I think it's page 28. It was the first thing Jaco noticed about my book. Is there a picture on that page?
Always remember the crowd chose Barbarous, not
Barabbas.
because they loved him, but because they hated the truth. Is that the one?
That's the one. When they killed Kennedy on 11/22 of 1963, that's a shad. To be in a shad with the Father, they can't kill all of us. That's why they divide and conquer.
Right.
Ishad is that answer, but when they killed Kennedy, everybody focused on the death of Kennedy, 11/22 of 63. 11/22 is 3/3, their number. They didn't just kill Kennedy. On the exact same day, they killed Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World to tell the world what was happening. And they killed C.S. Lewis, who was telling believers what was happening. All three men, all different ages, all different locations. That's a trifecta in Lucifer's kingdom. Lucifer, Satan, Baal, whatever you want to call him. That's a trifecta, and it's all on 11/22 to do it to three men. Nobody was ever talking about Aldous Huxley's death. Nobody was talking about C.S. Lewis. Nobody was even focused on that, but that's how they operate. We could take the rest of our lives trying to figure out how they're operating, but that's a waste of our time because we're not to learn what they do or how they do it or who they do it to. That's not our focus. Our focus is not the corporation. Our focus is not thinking that we became independent in 1776. Those signers of died horrible deaths. They were destroyed. Their properties were destroyed. Their homes were destroyed. Their families were killed. I mean, it's horrible what happened to those 56. Because this was already a plan against us because the Pilgrims made it here and their plan was unfolding. And so that's why all I say to people is we have to go back to the garden. There's two seeds. There's Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel and lied about it. If he could have killed Adam. But when Adam was brought to give the truth, he lied about it. So Lucifer said they were cursed from the garden. And that was the biggest lie. But that's what the Georgia Guidestones were about. So if we have to bring it back to a simple thing, because to describe the corporation and to describe that getting a birth certificate, your children are traded on NASDAQ. I mean, to go into all of those things don't help us go forward. What helps us go forward is to understand how we can be with each other and know who we are and whose we are. You're the one who brought it up. That was the most powerful thing. Because that is the crux of this whole thing of turning it where it needs to be. But we didn't know. So I can't make people wrong for it. I can't make people wrong if they never want to do anything about it, because look at all the generations it took to have us become a complete silent majority, because everybody who came forward with the truth was killed. Look at Breitbart.
Yeah.
Look at what they tried to do to Julian Assange. If you go back to Julian Assange, he was talking about Eric's son. So why did the Queen of England and Prince Philip, the husband and wife, Harvard president and wife, and the King and Queen of Sweden, why were they all taken to different locations? They didn't lock in place for COVID. They were all removed from their place. And they all got COVID. The couples both got COVID that nobody could prove whether or not you had it. The tests were all wrong. And why do you have to get a test to find out if you have it, if you don't have any symptoms? I mean, the whole thing has been a lie. So, but if you look at the fact of what's been happening, Eric's son is related to Julian Assange. Eric's son is the contracts that Loretta Lynch signed. I think that was part of the tarmac. It wasn't talking about grandchildren. It was that tarmac meeting. Those had to be signed to take over all of our communication systems in America. They have all of our cell phones, messaging, everything. So that's why King and Queen of Sweden, because Eric's son with the two S's is under that. Their symbol is the same as Monster Drink. It's the line, the line, the line. Volvo in Sweden is the line, the line, the line. Do you see what I mean? We don't know. And if we try and focus on all that bad stuff, we won't get anywhere. If we focus on and that's all Father's asked me to do, counter the lies, counter the lies. The book series are counter the lies. And I can only counter the lies with his truth.
Right.
But to know his truth and then to get these darn 45 points before I do book 6 and 7, but they're going to feed into 6 and 7. So this book had to be done now. I couldn't do second edition Nation Restoration. Flynn's been waiting since June of 21 for all 3 of those books. And then this shows up. but we all like Todd Callender. And when I talked to Vallely on Wednesday, he goes, well, I'm doing a new project with Todd Callender, and I was just on with him about you. And then I was just speaking with Flynn for an hour, and we talked about you. Do you see what I mean? We're focused on what takes us forward. How could Vallely do all these books on treason? How could he do the Golden Age and give it to the president? How could he and McInerney do Geronimo for the border issues? How could they give Sinaloa to him? They've been writing all of these operations so we can turn these things around. So there's people in the military that they know they can depend upon who are going to stand for the Constitution and get those things done. But you can't give the whole thing. And I know tonight, I don't even know how long I've been on here, but it looks like I've been on here for a couple hours. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't know.
No,
Is
that's
everybody
okay.
okay?
I want
Sheila,
to ask you this. I want to ask you this because this is the most important thing. Because I know many of the patriots, we all know we were called by God because this is why we're doing this. Okay, there was no alternative. There was no alternative. And
Out of time, out of location.
yes, my thing is this: how do we unite? How do we bring people together? How do we get everyone to understand where we're at? Because everyone's still chasing the dollar. Everyone's still going to concerts. They're still going to football games. They're still going to baseball games. They're still going to basketball. They're still living their life. And my question is to you, and I know many people are listening to this, when does that uniting happen? Because we've all lost all our friends. We've lost all our jobs. We've lost a lot of people are suffering.
We lost our credibility.
Yes. And at some point, when does the truth really rise? Now, we've seen that the Federal Reserve has been closed down in Washington, D.C. We see that the IRS has just been announced that it's no longer. We see these things. But the thing that I get so many people that reach out to me is when, and we're starting to lose some of our patriots because of the longevity. I get the layers of this. I understand the layers of it. And my question was to you, Sheila, what do you see? How does this come about?
It comes about from the bottom up. They flipped the switch on us and made federal in charge of everything. So we keep looking for the federal to solve this, for the federal to resolve this. And why is it taking so long? Those are all the wrong focus, wrong questions, completely wrong. We didn't know timing. There are people that are still mad at me because Biden wasn't arrested instead of that fake inauguration in January of 21. And Biden was already dead. He got the shot December. It was President Trump gave it in the CPAC State of the Union because there wasn't anybody to do the State of the Union. If you think back about Biden, there were no State of the Unions by the end of February, which is required under the corporation, which he was. Our president's never been under there. He and Kennedy never accepted anything from the corporation. And so, because they didn't become beholden to the corporation. So who we are as people, I wrote about this in book 4 that came out in 2019, that we've got to quit thinking in a monarch mentality. We've got to quit thinking they're in charge of our lives. We've got to quit thinking they're going to take care of us, or why are they taking care of these illegals and they're not taking care of us? And why are they using our money for all these other people? We have complied for so much that the word comply didn't come up until COVID. And if we think about it, we didn't even know who was sitting next to us in pews in church until COVID.
Right.
We didn't even know who our family members were until COVID. Because even when they narrowed it down that you couldn't have more than 3 cars and 6 people in your house or whatever it was for the holidays, even when it got to that point, who could we still sit around and have 6 chairs around a table and have a conversation? Because it threw everything up at us. So to say now, what is it that we can do and where do we think we're headed and what do we think the timing is? Only Father knows the end from the beginning. There's not a single book that has come out from me since 2014. All of this started and now 21 just came out. I didn't plan any of this. I've never asked Father what's next. I've never said, where are you taking me today? All I do is thank him that I'm here today, thank him that he puts in front of me who I can bless and share the truth with, and whatever he does from that, because I don't know who's listening. But I think the numbers that have been shared tonight are really, really off, because I have seen tremendous shifts and change in the last 6 months and year. I saw a huge shift after the assassination attempt in Butler. Huge shift. I saw another shift when the truth came out that the FBI in East Pennsylvania was involved in the Butler situation. Another shift. And that was right after there was an attempt on him on the golf course, and he only shared it with one person. And I'm not going to reveal who the name was, but it's a famous name. He shared it with that one person just to see what would happen. And that one person got the truth to where he was going to be on the golf course, to the one person who tried to shoot him through the fence at his national golf course. And so there, you have to find out, because those closest to you are not close to how you're thinking. So to try and say, when can this be done, or what can we individually do? That's what I was saying. What we can do is say that everything that's been said to us is a lie. People are so mad I don't talk about MK Ultra. And when the biggest thing I've been able to share with people, if this helps anybody tonight, when you look at the bell curve of the progress in a business, where it gets up to the peak and it's at its best, flip the sucker underneath. That's what deprogramming looks like. And we didn't get around the bottom of the deprogramming into another phase of progress until Butler. And it took until just the last few weeks to even start to creep up again on the good side of this. What we've not understood is they're everywhere. We kept thinking about 12 families, 13 families. None of that matters. They're all married in different names. Bill Clinton's a Rockefeller, raised as a Rockefeller. That's why he was in the Rhodes Scholar thing. I thought it made him intelligent until I started hearing who he really was. And he wasn't a scholar. And he was, but Pete Buttigieg is a Rhodes Scholar. We are hearing the lies for so long that I don't have to talk about MK Ultra, because we've been programmed by absolutely everything. We've been told how to speak, how to talk, getting college degrees when the colleges have been controlled by them. I remember that if I didn't spit back what a professor said in my papers, I didn't get the best grades. You had to say what they said to you. It's all been programming. So to think that we're not on that downward slope trying to come out of programming, that's the biggest thing we have to bring people through. And that's why individual conversations, if everybody just tried to disciple 12 people, look at what happened to Christ when he tried to disciple 12 people. If you think you're failing because someone's betrayed you, he had it too. If someone's denied you, he had it too. If someone sold you for for somebody to abuse you, it's all happened to him. So that's 3 out of 12. And Peter never thought he would do it, but he did it. And so we're in that same place. And what people are doing is they're judging themselves for how good they are and how much they do for God. And so then they close themselves in. I've watched it happen. They close themselves in, and I've just got to do this, and I can't be focused on anything else. Our whole focus is the people. Somebody mentioned that tonight. I think it was Anna said something about the people, because in Hebrew, when you're fighting for a nation, you're fighting for the people, because the word nation and people means the same thing. And may this enlighten you to how much God is so perfected on who's in a nation and who the people are. Did you know that when he came and in essence sent his son, when he came and he was born, there were 70 nations, and that's why Hanukkah is 70 days from the first day of Feast of Tabernacles. From his birth to Hanukkah is 70 days. You'll see this in the beginning of my trumpet call book, because that's how you call people together. They sent out the message by a trumpet, and the believers would know to gather together to hear the truth. It wasn't about meeting in any kind of a building or keeping a building up with stained glass windows and gold on the tops and crosses on the tops and not having a steeple. And every every steeple on a church means they're having the meetings down the basement, guys. It just, we haven't known. So if we can just narrow it down and just be with each other as the people with the truth, and in knowing the truth, we can spread it as much as those 12 families did, to be all these different names now in all of these different nations that we're now funding, because they're all related to them. We're funding through the world order, we're funding the members of their family. That's why the main four in Ukraine, we funded John Kerry's stepson, Heinz. We funded Pelosi's son. We funded Biden's son. And we funded Romney's son. Because that's the energy thing. But that's their family funding source. And that's why they're saying it's all a fake structure and it's oligarchs, and they aren't having real elections either. If we look at the big picture, it all comes down to the fact, if you will seek truth and walk in truth and continue to be in truth and gather together with people in truth. President Trump said it. You Christians, you believers, are the largest majority in the world. And you let this happen. How did this happen? How did you become a silent majority? It's because we stopped sharing the truth, because the people that shared the truth were killed.
Here.
And if they will even kill Christ, if they will even kill Breitbart, if they will even keep trying to kill Julian Assange, that's the whole reason why Pompeo was just served with a summons, he was just served, and it's because he agreed to be the guy that would secretly take out Assange and his family. We didn't know these things. We don't know those decisions that are made. I cannot tell you how many political party people are married to spouses they met at DuPont, which is the farm for the CIA. And it's all across this country. And they tell me this. I'm not asking questions about it. They're telling me this. And I've tried to tell people, and nobody cares. We don't know who people are. Only Father can tell you who the people are. So we're wanting to blanket a whole bunch of people and have it all happen in a fast process. To save souls, you've got to take it in Father's steps and in Father's timing. And that's why he had me do those first 4 books in 2 months. If we're filled with faith and we can function in the storehouse, he gave me storehouse principle. Then he said, you got to do a workbook, because even my pastors don't know how to tithe anything other than money. They don't know how to tithe talent, skills, abilities. If we were functioning like this, we could operate in God's currency, and we wouldn't even care if the entire economy collapsed and there was no currency in America, because we would be working together with each other. So to say, what is it we can do to turn this around? We have to start working with each other, because we're the answer that God has sent for the people that he's sending us to. We have the answers that the people need if we will meet with them. And if we will meet with them in God's way and God's timing, based on what he's asking us to do. And that's why all 4 of those books came out in 2 months. Impossible without him. And that was so critical. And I said, this seems to be urgent to you. And he said, because they want to collapse the currency, and I want my people to know my truth. And that's why he sent me all around the world. I had nothing. They had so ruined me. My Social Security numbers have changed again and again and again. And I don't know if you want to pull up, if you want to pull up that introductory video on the website, on the homepage, and you can see how he showed me this. I had nothing for years. I've had nothing for years. And I didn't have a car for years. And then when he gave me a car in 3 days to bring a Saudi Arabian Muslim who was a fleet manager at the dealership to him, he said at the end, he said, I want to dump my God. I have never seen a God who blesses his people, and he wanted to come to the Father. And that's how my life goes. So I got a car, and I've never had to sleep in that car, but I had a great place that he provided for 12 years. Then I had no home for 12 years. And now here I've been in Georgia for 12 years. How crazy is this life? And part of that not having a home is part of the 12 years of Georgia. But this is what he will do things that we can't even imagine in a grocery store to introduce you to a widow who changes her life, and then all of a sudden all of her generations change. It's all in us to do what we can individually do. And we keep wondering when Trump's going to finish. We keep wondering when Congress is going to wake up. We keep wondering when all these people are going to do what they need to do to fix our lives. And there's nobody that's going to be able to fix it. Nobody's going to be able to change it. But God will take you through it at a level that you cannot even begin to comprehend, because I've lived it. I've been there. I know this. So this little introduction, it's about 5.5 minutes. Do we have another 5 minutes? I don't know how much time you guys have,
Yeah,
but I'm willing to be here for you. But
no, this is great, Sheila. So let's play this and then we're coming up on an hour and a half and we'll close out in prayer.
okay, this is the journey through the decades, and you may have to enlarge it to read the words. There isn't any volume to it.
I do ask
Oh, here it goes.
every editor.
Are we going to be able to get it, Mike?
I'm looking to see. Like, I'm looking to see how to share the audio.
It did come up.
It's on the screen and all you got to do is play it.
Yeah, it's playing, but can you hear the audio? Can you hear the audio?
No.
It'll come up. It's Kennedy's speech. It started to play. The first few seconds it didn't, but then it came up.
I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. In time of war, the government and the press have customarily joined in an effort based largely on self-discipline to prevent unauthorized disclosures to the enemy. In times of clear and present danger, the courts have held that even the privileged rights of the First Amendment must yield to the public's need for national security. For the facts of the matter are that this nation's foes have openly boasted of acquiring through our newspapers information they would otherwise hire agents to acquire.
Mike, are you hearing audio?
No, there's no audio.
Is there
I'm not
supposed to
Mike.
be? Is there supposed to be?
Mm-hmm.
Well, just reading that, Sheila, it's obvious that you're a divine feminine, you're strong. And to go through what you had gone through, there's one thing I will say in this movement is the divine feminine has really stepped up. Seeing a lot of women in this movement. And I want to thank you for coming on with us. And it's unfortunate that General Valley had to take that call, but we don't know what that call is involved. And it might be all good things. So, but you're a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate you coming on with us. Been following you for a long time. Your knowledge is so strong. And I just wanted to thank you for coming on to
I
the panel
apologize
here.
for the audio side of that, Sheila. So
That's okay. That's okay. It goes into the books where you saw the last thing on the 3 highway patrol officers couldn't find me in the system because they've erased me twice. They erased me in 2011-12, and they just erased me again in 24. If we don't come through the fire, if we choose to quit, we're quitting before the miracle. I have learned that again and again and again, and it's hard to explain to people in America. You can say you have faith, but when the struggle gets tough, you want people to pray that you don't have to experience it. And I hear it all the time. And you want someone to pray for you. And that's not going to get us through. What's going to get us through is getting through it with the Father. He took my hand and brought me through all of this. The FBI told me in 2012, the top agent said, "We just want to know, how are you coming through all this and not committing suicide?" Because that's what they get people to do. But that's what they do. And I thought I could believe in them. And here's my own family. My dad knew because he fought in World War II. He was a medic in the Orient, starting with the cannibals in New Guinea all the way up through the islands up to the Philippines. And the things he saw were just horrific. And I said, I don't know how to do this, and you've done wars, so how do I do this war? And he goes, Sheila, you were never trained for it. The worst part is you don't even know who the enemy is. And you're letting too many people jump in the foxhole with you, and you're never going to know if they've got your back until the shooting starts. That's how far we are away from Titus 1. Titus 1 is to have those elders who cannot be deceived in those areas and start there. And we've got enough veterans who are on the streets who would love those positions that we could help them get. And it's up to us, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. It's up to us to put them in the positions locally because they took an oath to the Constitution. A lot of the guys who come back and kill themselves, it isn't due to PTSD. It's due to they had to fly these children to these embassies and let these guys do whatever they do to these children. The things that they have experienced, we don't even begin to understand. So individually, and it's not, I don't know how to say your name really well, Qranker, but the gift is we don't know what people have been through. We don't know how to bring them through. But we are at a point of where the unity is more important in truth than anything else that we've ever experienced in our life. And when even Adam couldn't give the truth to the Father, I mean, it goes all the way back. It's not just what they've done to this nation. It's not just what they've done to the political structure. It's none of those things. If we come back to Titus 1, and we're willing in our individual communities to start setting these things up with the time that we have available in our lives while we're here to make our legacy important. I mean, you heard what the general was saying tonight. I'm so impressed with him. He's not stopped writing the operation plans. He's not stopped giving them to President Trump. He has not stopped working on new projects with Flynn. There are times when Flynn is out of this country. People don't know what Flynn is doing. He's out of this country and he comes back for the president. I don't think there's a week that goes by that the president isn't talking to him 4 or 5 times a week. And people keep wondering what's his position in the government. Flynn's not trying to get a position in the government. He's still doing America's future to turn around all of the communities. And of the America Project, he gave over to the Patriot Party News Network so that they could put things together and get people activated on the ground to get things done. So every one of the people that's right here, every one of the people listening, everybody has skills, talents, and abilities that people around you need. And when you start sharing those, you're going to gain relationships and operating in truth. That's what's going to turn this country around. It's never been different than it's we the people in order to form a more perfect union. And when you the Moors told me this because the Moravians, was it, that came on the ships across to, they ended up, it's their sayings where it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and then it goes ... The guys, the list is long. It's not just those 3 things we're fighting for. It's all of it, because that's why this is our land to secure for future generations. And when you were mentioning, Rob, about that scripture, I didn't finish the end of it, and that's the example. And somebody said that they just looked at it, and in editing it changed to Hebrews from Hosea 4:6, but it's my people perish for the lack of knowledge, and therefore they cannot be a priest for me, and I will reject their 3rd and 4th generations. And what does that look like in America? So we can't start with where the generations are now. We didn't even realize, why were they naming them millennials at 2000? And then how did they go so quickly to Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z? And now Gen Z can't buy houses, can't get jobs, they were done with us, and we didn't see it. They're done with the generations. They're done with believers being here. They're so frustrated with us. But if we weren't here, God's hand wouldn't be upon them. It'd be a whole different environment for them. But that's what they do. They break up every single nation that they're involved in. That's why these nations have all gone bankrupt, is that they're stealing from all of them the way they stole from us. And the reason why they kept taking so much from us for every reason, and it was fun about when you mentioned property taxes, because that the whole thing is fake. And it's just like Social Security. It was just another way to tax the employer and the employee, because as Reagan told us, you guys don't look for it, because there is no fund called the Social Security Administration Fund. There's no money there. They just keep taking from younger people to pay older people. And now you're finding out that they're paying a lot of people who never even were here, worked here, anything. So it's all been against us. So just having personal time, communication with people is going to make all the difference in the world, of just coming to the truth and helping people understand nothing you have heard, nothing you have been told, nothing you have been directed about is the truth. Nothing. It's a horrible place to feel like you've got no truth around you and you've got nothing to stand on. But then the truth will flood into you. I don't know another way to describe it. I'm shocked at what he has given me, but it's because if you become a scripture, if you become an empty vessel, he will fill you. And I had to learn that when I traveled the world with him, because I didn't have any money. He had to do all of it, even the shuttle to the airport, all the tickets on the flights. He had to handle everything, all the nations he sent me to, everything that's been done in my life. I haven't had any way to do it since all of these Social Security number changes. My federal grand jury case submission is 25 pages of changes of ID. And it's not just 25 individual changes of ID. The related ones are all on the same page. So it's 25 pages of multiple changes of ID every few months since 1992, the year of my corporation trial.
Well, thank you for sharing all this with us, Sheila. And we got to know you a little more. You've always had great messages on other channels, and we enjoy you so much. We're coming up on an hour and a half now. We don't like to go too much further than that. And we'll have you back again. What we'd like to do is end the show basically, I want to thank you, Sheila. I want to thank General Valley. I want to thank Rob for joining us. As always, Rob's always a great knowledge also. Anna, let's finish with prayer here. Anna will say it in Portuguese for all the people in South America, and then I'll say it in America. And then Mike, if you would play our closeout song of God Bless America by Kate Smith. Anna,
And
if you
San
could.
Diego was Portuguese, not Spanish. People thought it was Spanish, but it's Portuguese. Cabrillo Monument is all Portuguese.
Really
So thank you, Anna.
interesting. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Sheila. I love hearing you. I love hearing the tone of your voice. I see myself in you, through you. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Um, yeah, should I start, Cranker?
Yes, please, Anna.
Ok. Pai Todo-Poderoso, humildemente viemos a Ti para servir nesse momento, vivendo através da sua glória. Com nossos corações repletos de gratidão e comprometidos com o Teu plano para salvar o mundo, somos todos muito gratos por esse encontro e por aqueles que abriram seus corações para ouvir esse chamado especial essa noite. Em um momento marcado como a tempestade, estamos animados, mas também ansiosos e cansados. Buscamos em Ti forças, pois nunca cederemos nem jamais cederemos aos caminhos malignos das sociedades secretas. A vida que sustenta nossa alma e espírito, o Cristo dentro de nós, para amar a nós mesmos e aqueles que Te buscam. Humildemente pedimos mais da Tua sabedoria para abençoar todos aqueles que se juntaram a nós ao vivo e a nossa audiência gravada. Por favor, abençoe a Sheila, o General Vallely, Rob e todos os outros do nosso painel para que suas vidas continuem a servir ao Teu plano em Tua ação. Oramos também pelo presidente Trump, por nossos militares e por aqueles que, em silêncio, mas diligentemente, oferecem suas vidas como tuas mãos nesse plano, para que sejam saudáveis e protegidos de todo o mal. Que tu sejas sempre encontrado por aqueles que buscam o teu coração em cada momento de solidão que enfrentam, e por meio de ti sejam restaurados. Deus abençoe a América e nossos irmãos e irmãs ao redor do mundo. Que assim seja. Qranker, please.
Thy Almighty Father, we humbly come to you in service for this moment, living through your glory, with our hearts filled with gratitude and commitment to the plan, your plan to save the world. We are so thankful for this meeting and for those who have opened their hearts and to listen to this special call. In a time marked as the storm, we are excited, but yet we have anxiety along with our tiredness. We look to you for strength as we never give, nor we ever will give in to evil ways of the secret societies. The life which sustains our souls, our spirit, the Christ within us to love ourselves and those who look out for you. We humbly ask for more of your wisdom to bless all those who joined us on this live recorded audience. Please bless Sheila. Please bless General Valley, Rob Cunningham, and our entire panel for their life to continue to serve as your plan and your actions. We also pray for President Trump and the Q military and those in silence but diligently offering their lives as your hands in this plan to be healthy and safe from all evil. May you always find for those who look for your heart in every moment of loneliness and they face through you to be made whole again. God bless America and our brothers and sisters all around the world. So let it be. Amen. Rob, Mike having a little problem.
Mike, your microphone is muted. That might be why we're not hearing it. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Can you hear us, Mike? Your mic is off.
Yeah, I can. I'm trying to.
Will it-
It's just frustrating. The video.
Great pleasure in presenting to you
There we go.
the star
There you
of our
go.
program, Miss Kate Smith.
You hear it?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. It is my happy privilege to introduce a new song, God Bless America. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair. As we raise our voices in a solemn prayer, God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairie to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairie, to the ocean. Goodbye, Daddy.
Bye, Dad. Don't be late.
No. White with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet
Right, Pop?
Right, son.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairie, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America.
Kind of makes you think of Blake, doesn't it? Makes you think of a lot of things. We're going to be in this yet, Mom.
Hello, son.
Hi, Mom.
Hello, darling.
New song?
Brand new, first time of the year. Brand new, my eye. You know, I threw that song out of Yip Yip Yap Hank 22 years ago. Sounds better now.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, for being with us. You were
It's good to be with you
Still-
guys.
We're still recording.